Paranormal Activity is one of those movies that, despite it being 20 years old, I keep coming back to it. I really wanted to dive into why. Why do I keep watching this particular movie? Yes, everybody knows the tales about the bass being at a certain frequency that physically makes you ill or uncomfortable, or the very simple tricks that they use to drag Katie down the hall. I mean, truly, what was it that had this demon living rent-free in people's heads when this came out? What was it about a $15,000 budget that grossed over $100 million in box office? How were they able to capture that kind of lightning in a bottle? And I think I know the answer why, and I want to share all of it with you. I'm Tasha Wheelhouse. This is Copper Shock, where we are horror obsessed, and today we're going to take a look at Paranormal Activity. The first one. There's a whole franchise here. There's 7, 8 movies. There are 7 so far. I heard about a play going on in LA right now, and it's a completely original story. All of the onstage effects, they collaborated with a magician in order to get all of the paranormal feelings on stage. And it's the same magician who did all of the best work for The Cursed Child and Back to the Future, the musical. It got my curiosity piqued of maybe I just watch the original again, because I remember really liking that movie. 2006, the timeline in which this story takes place, was the year I graduated high school. And then comparing that with the fact that that was nearly 20 years ago just kills me a little inside. If you remember the first time you saw Paranormal Activity and what that experience was like, please comment it and share it with us below, because I'd love to hear what that was. My first viewing of Paranormal Activity was about 2011. It had been out on DVD for a couple of years by that point. Back when Netflix was $6 a month, and you would have a digital queue of movies, and then you would just have the top queue in your movie mailed to you in the mail, like they'd mail an actual DVD. The first movie I picked was Paranormal Activity because I really wanted to watch it, and there was no way I was going to try and sneak that movie into my parents' very religious household. The film itself had been in festivals and stuff in 2007, and then it got picked up by Paramount, and then it was publicly released into theaters around 2009. I got to watch it in my apartment alone, thinking I could just handle it. I may have paused the movie twice, taking a deep breath to go get water. And for a film that is unbelievably slow, it really walks this line of tension so well. And I think a lot of it was by accident. Funnily enough, the camera he's holding is pretty similar to one that I had in college too. So when I saw it on camera, it also hit the back of my head of oh, I have a camera like that. This film is not only quiet, it takes its time. It just took an extra 17 seconds in some shots before you heard nails dragging down the wall, as though you were just sitting in that room with them, and then you hear it. And it's crazy how much it still resonates for me today. So let's talk a little bit about what is in this movie, especially if you haven't seen it before, because it's nearly 2 decades old. We start this movie with 2 main characters, Katie and Mika. Katie and Mika have a very loving relationship. They play with each other, they joke at each other, they cuss at each other the way that you would privately in your home with your significant other. Katie is a lit student where she's very bookish and a little quiet. She doesn't really watch TV unless she's with Mika. She prefers to do knitting, beadwork, and jewelry. She likes quiet self-activities, and Mika is the one that brings her out of her shell. He's a day trader, so he can work from home all the time. Mika is loud. He likes to make fun, sometimes to ask her to do funny couple things of hey, give me a striptease on camera. And she's like, no. Or jokingly trying to film them during intimacy. And then she catches him, and then she gives him a little pat on the butt of you're naughty. And her boyfriend Mika has just bought this brand new camcorder. He's super proud of it. I was debating where Mika sat emotionally about what is happening in this film, because there were a lot of things that he did that I'm buddy, I know you're her boyfriend, but you are being a jackass right now. Where if I take it from the perspective of Mika doesn't believe any of this is real at first, he is the jokester boyfriend that likes to make his girlfriend laugh. Mika believes that he is the guy of the household. It is his job to solve the problem. Small things begin to happen in the house that Mika gets very excited about capturing. She feels very isolated and alone when he does that. And he provokes the demon to come out further. Drives me nuts every time I watch it, to be honest. And then over time, as Mika doesn't take Katie seriously, and as Katie begins to sink deeper and deeper into depression and pull herself away from Mika, feeling the separation of their relationship, then that divide, that gap, is where the demon can step in to capitalize on all of that negative energy between them. And it is outright stated in the very beginning of the movie when the psychic comes over to explain demons feed on bad energy. He gives a warning to Mika of, I hope you're taking this seriously. And Mika's just not. I don't think he really believes that this thing could hurt him or Katie. He also has a complete lack of emotional integrity whenever Katie is completely angry at him for not taking her trauma and her serious problems seriously with her. And it isn't until Katie is physically dragged out of her bed in the middle of the night that Mika really begins to think, I don't want this anymore. But by that point, it's kind of too late. Mika has invoked this demon. He's done things in the house to try and invite it in with a Ouija board. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes, guy. I don't know what to tell you. It isn't until Katie is completely overcome and possessed that Mika really wanted to leave, and Katie convinces him, no, let's just stay in the house one more night. She even gives this little smile on camera. The thing about the smile that Katie does is it's so gentle to herself of like, everything's going to be all right now. And on now, there's this slight separation of her voice of completely two different beings saying now. That's when I started hugging my blanket really hard of, oh no. The way this film ends is quite famous, where Katie stands up in the middle of the night. She's been standing there for 2 hours and then walks downstairs and screams bloody murder. Mika, woken up by Katie's screams, terrified without the camera, runs downstairs out of frame. This shot freaked me out because the camera lens is a character, a passive character, us, the audience. And now we are held captive, listening for the footsteps coming up the stairs in the darkness toward us in this very long shot. Mika's body is thrown at the lens, makes everybody jump, and Katie is standing in the doorway covered in Mika's blood. And as she walks closer to the camera, it's almost like she's looking past the lens and looking into your eyes. Katie leans down into the lens. She gives this slight smile like she did before, and then attacks the camera, and that's how the whole film ends. Fun fact, that ending was suggested by Steven Spielberg. Yes, Jurassic Park, Jaws, Steven Spielberg. All of the cast and crew, they filmed this over a period of 7 days in the director's actual house to save on costs. The two actors on camera, Katie and Mika, those are their real names in real life. Mika and Katie were conferenced with, and they're like, hey, what do you want your character to be? And they're just like, is it okay if we just call you your name? And Katie, yeah, sure, I guess it's not a problem. She was not expecting anybody to see this movie. She said if there was one piece of advice, if she could go back in time and advise her 20-something-year-old self, it was just pick a character name. Michelle, anything. Katie Featherston was on something called Mutation, and I guess it was some direct video thing, but that was the only thing that she had starred in before Paranormal Activity. She was like an instant success overnight. Everyone knew what she looked like and what her name was. She remarked that that was kind of very surreal because she was waiting tables in Texas when she got a call from Oren, the director, to say, hey, can you come back to San Diego for reshoots? In interviews that I've seen of Katie Featherston, she's been very humble about the franchise in general. She's grateful to be a part of it. The fact is, she was massively involved when it came to how Paranormal Activity, the first film, like the tone of it and what Katie, the character, wanted, because the entire script did not even have an ending when they first started shooting. I don't even know if you could really call it a script. They had bullet points of what they wanted to have happen. They call it retroscripting, where here's the kind of general thing that happens, but you and Mika just get to talk to each other and then we'll cut around it. At one point, I guess there was like a 2.5-hour cut. And then every time they screened this film with somebody privately, they would make notes and they would cut things. What's super interesting to me is how we got to keep this film the way that it is. It is really weird and unusual for Paramount Pictures to distribute a film of a bunch of no-name actors on a $15,000 budget. So how did they get away with that? From what I understand in the story, Oren had a brilliant idea. He said to Paramount, hey, I totally understand. We should definitely do some audience testings. How about you come join us to see how the audience reacts to the film so that you can get some good notes and ideas for when you reshoot it? Paramount's like, yeah, sure. And when they were in the theater with this audience, not only were they seeing people physically react and scream at the film more than other films that they had been producing at the day, but there were people who were exiting the theater. And they later found out the reason they exited was because it was so scary to them. They couldn't stand being in the room. And at that point, Paramount was like, we'll just distribute it and see what happens. And now today, it is one of the biggest, most profitable franchises Paramount has ever done. From that point forward, it was completely under SAG, completely under proper writers, creating the lore, creating the boundaries, and expanding on the universe. And Katie Featherston, she said, well, I mean, I could look at it one of two ways. I could say, well, I'm the reason and the original thing that all this was created and what the character wanted and what was happening to her. Or it doesn't get to just be mine anymore. It gets to be this shared story that everybody gets to contribute to. And she found much more joy in that. So what was it about Paranormal Activity, this exact movie, that really got underneath people's skin? And I believe I have the answer to that. I want to talk about objectively how poorly shot of a film Paranormal Activity actually is. And that is one of the biggest reasons it is the strongest in the franchise. I mean, check this out. In their edits, they're using crossfades into black. That's pretty amateur. It really is. And I want you to take a long, hard look at the white balance in this shot, or the exposure in some of the shots. Like this shot with Katie's face, you can barely tell she has a nose. Here is the catchy part. All of these impurities make this film feel more real. If anyone has ever played with a camcorder on like a family vacation, there just plainly are shots where they are totally out of focus, like this one. What's even better was at the very beginning, there was a shot where Mika was playing with the microphone because it's a brand new camera, and he asks Katie to whisper across the house. She talks whispers, and he's like, no, really whisper. I want to see if I can hear it and pick it up. This is one of the genius shots about this movie, is because it establishes something very specific, that we as an audience are meant to expect that poor of sound quality on purpose. So we'll go back to that scene with the psychic. Listen to how much this guy's voice bounces off the ceilings on the walls, and how he's directing it at Katie away from Mika and the camera.
Some normal thing that's going on, it just has people a little bit more freaked because they're under a high degree of stress. So this, let's call it a haunting, has happened to you before moving into this house?
It's horrible shot sound quality. And if you think about it today, for like most vloggers and YouTubers, they're so used to having a DJI mic just with them as they're walking around vlogging that you can hear people clearly. Back in 2007, not a thought in anybody's head when you had a camcorder. You just hoped you picked up the ambiance of the room, no matter how much it echoed everywhere. That's why this particular point was a brilliant filmmaking choice. On the scenes when they had to sound mix in that heavy bass or the scratching of nails down the wall, you could almost feel what the camera picked up energetically as a spirit versus what the demon was doing to scratch the walls in the background of the house. You could hear both. That genuinely made it feel more real. At this point in time, the found footage genre had been pretty dead for a number of years, ever since Blair Witch Project. Okay, so it's a badly shot movie, but why does that make it feel real? Think about back in 2007. YouTube was very, very new. I believe that there is a mental mindset here of the audience back then that we really need to consider and heavily weigh. YouTube was starting to get popularity. It was still very much a roulette of whether you were going to get a good video or just someone's random home video, like the Charlie bit my finger thing. Watching someone film their daily life and then putting it on the internet was a very novel concept. When you filmed yourself, you weren't really anticipating like an audience to see what was happening to you. The way that Mika captures film in Paranormal Activity, it wasn't trying to be like a, hey guys, you gonna subscribe to my channel? We're gonna catch some ghosts tonight. No one was watching. No one was watching. And so when Paranormal Activity was filmed, it was specifically filmed with the intent of this was not meant for anybody else to see, which is one of the reasons it made it so much more terrifying to watch back then. YouTube at that point in time didn't really have channels. You just had your account, which you happened to upload home movies to. The reason this is so interesting to me is because the way that we consume YouTube content today of people just filming in their homes is so curated and edited and staged in order to serve a specific entertainment purpose. But back in 2007, it was just a voyeuristic peek at what a person's life was like. And that was part of that realism that really seemed to break people's comfort when it came to Paranormal Activity. Watching this movie felt like reliving a horrible experience that someone had. But the theme of a demon haunting somebody and causing a distressed turnout isn't unique as a storyline. It's easy to talk about the deterioration of the relationship, but you remove the demon part of it, and it really applies to like how we don't need demons in our life to destroy our own lives, especially if we are refusing connection with each other. Sounds like a weirdly sentimental note to take away from a demon film, and you're talking about the loss of connection between two people, how they're drifting apart, how one is asking for help, the other doesn't take it seriously, or is trying to minimize the feelings of what's happening to her, or vice versa. She is isolating harder and harder and refusing to let help in. And when you create that distance, it's explosive. And calling back to that play that's going on in LA, their tagline is, "Places are not haunted, people are." But with this couple, they have not only moved into a new place, but there are some old demons, like past traumas and past issues that one of the main characters has buried so hard that begin to bubble up and come to the surface during the stage play. The messages that I take from this play and from this film have to do with interpersonal relationships and how we must protect them in order to remain strong in our own lives. Being connected to other people is important. Being willing to ask for help is important. Not just validating feelings, but offering to help process them without forcing them. There are some very beautiful things to be examined about how a relationship can bloom and function under pressure if approached correctly by both sides of the problem. Tell me what you think about this movie. What are some things that you enjoyed about it? What are some maybe themes that I didn't touch on in this video? And in any case, I'll see you in the next one. Bye.